Many men speak to women, but very few truly know how to connect with them. They chase attention, ask endless questions, and try too hard to be accepted. But real confidence is not found in talking more. It is found in understanding yourself, your energy, and the way you communicate. In this wisdom-filled journey, you will discover how to speak with calmness, confidence, and presence. So, your words create respect, attraction, and genuine connection without needing to seek approval. Here is my promise to you in today's talk that I will prove at the end. By the end of this journey, you will understand that powerful communication with women is not about perfect words or endless conversation. It is about developing the awareness, confidence, and inner balance that naturally creates respect and deeper connection. 1. Master your inner state before you speak. Confidence begins within. Before you learn how to speak to another person, you must first learn how to speak to yourself. Many people believe communication begins with words. They think the secret is finding the perfect sentence, the perfect joke, the perfect compliment, the perfect question. But before any word leaves your mouth, something deeper has already spoken. Your energy, your mindset, your inner state. A person can say beautiful things with an insecure heart, and people will feel the insecurity. A person can say simple things with a peaceful heart, and people will feel the confidence. This is one of the greatest principles of human connection. People do not only listen to your words, they experience the person behind your words. When you approach a woman while seeking approval, your mind becomes restless. You start thinking, does she like me? Am I interesting enough? Am I saying the right thing? And slowly, you stop being present. You are no longer connecting with another human being. You are performing for acceptance. And when you perform, you lose your natural power. Because true confidence does not come from trying to impress someone. True confidence comes from knowing that your value already exists before anyone recognizes it. A tree does not ask the wind for permission to stand tall. A mountain does not ask the clouds if it is worthy of being seen. It simply exists, stable, rooted, present. This is the kind of inner state you must develop. Not arrogance, not pretending to be better than others, but a quiet understanding. I do not need to prove my worth. I only need to express who I truly am. Many conversations fail because people enter them with the wrong intention. They enter to receive something: attention, validation, approval, a feeling of being important. But when your mind is focused only on what you can receive, you become blind to what is happening in front of you. You stop seeing the person. You only see your own desire, and this creates tension. A woman can often sense when someone is trying too hard. She can feel when a person is speaking from confidence or from fear. Fear speaks quickly. Fear explains too much. Fear tries to convince. Confidence is different. Confidence does not chase. Confidence does not force. Confidence allows space. Imagine two people walking into a room. One person is constantly looking around wondering who notices me. Another person walks calmly, observes, smiles naturally and feels comfortable within themselves. Who creates a stronger presence? The second person, not because they are louder, not because they demand attention, but because they are at peace with themselves. This is the foundation of communication. Before you speak to a woman, learn to become comfortable with your own silence. Because if you cannot handle silence with yourself, you will always try to fill silence with unnecessary words. You will talk too much, explain too much, try too hard. But a calm mind does not fear quiet moments. A calm mind understands that silence is not emptiness. Silence is awareness. In the quiet moments, you begin to notice. You notice your emotions, your reactions, your intentions. You begin to understand. Am I speaking because I have something meaningful to share? Or am I speaking because I am afraid of being forgotten? This question changes everything because communication is not only about what comes out of your mouth, it is about where those words come from. A person who is centered speaks differently. They do not rush. They do not interrupt. They do not desperately search for the next thing to say. They allow conversations to breathe. And this creates something rare in modern relationships, a feeling of safety. Many people underestimate the power of feeling safe around someone. They think attraction is only about appearance, humor, or exciting conversation. But deep connection often begins when another person feels I can be myself around this person. Oh, that feeling comes from emotional stability. When you are stable inside, you give others permission to relax. When you are constantly seeking approval, others feel pressure because unconsciously they feel responsible for your emotions. They feel they must make you feel good. They must respond correctly. They must give you attention. And this is not connection. This is emotional dependence. The strongest conversations happen when two people meet as complete individuals. Not two people trying to complete each other. Not two people trying to fill empty spaces, but two people sharing their experiences, thoughts, and energy freely. This begins with mastering yourself, your emotions, your thoughts, your reactions. A person who cannot control their own mind will always be controlled by external responses. One compliment can make them happy. One rejection can destroy their confidence. One delayed message can create anxiety. But when you train your inner state, you become different. You understand? Someone's response does not define my value. Someone's interest does not create my worth. Someone's opinion does not control my peace. This is not becoming cold. This is becoming free. And freedom creates confidence. A confident person does not approach a woman thinking, how can I make her like me? A confident person thinks, how can I share my authentic self and understand another human being? The difference is small in words but enormous in energy. One comes from fear, the other comes from strength. Remember this. The goal is not to become someone who attracts everyone. The goal is to become someone who respects himself so deeply that he naturally attracts the right people. Because when you respect yourself, your communication changes, your posture changes, your eye contact changes, your voice changes, your presence changes. You no longer speak from a place of needing. You speak from a place of abundance. And people are naturally drawn toward abundance. A person with inner peace does not need to constantly prove that they are interesting. Their calmness itself becomes interesting. Their awareness becomes attractive. Their ability to remain grounded becomes powerful. This is why the first conversation you must master is not with another person. It is with yourself. Because every external relationship is a reflection of your internal relationship. If you are constantly fighting yourself inside, you will bring that conflict into every interaction. But if you build peace within yourself, you bring peace wherever you go. And once you understand this foundation, the next question becomes, if you no longer seek validation from your words, then how do you communicate in a way that creates genuine connection? Because the greatest conversations are not created by trying to be impressive. They are created when you stop chasing acceptance and learn the power of true presence. And this is where the next level of communication begins. 2. Replace seeking validation with calm, presence, and self-respect. After mastering your inner state, the next step is understanding one of the biggest obstacles in human connection, the desire to be accepted. Every human being wants to feel valued. Every human being wants to feel seen. This is natural. But when the desire for acceptance becomes stronger than your respect for yourself, you lose your balance. You begin to change yourself just to receive approval. You hide your true thoughts. You pretend to enjoy things you do not enjoy. You agree when you actually disagree. You become a version of yourself designed to receive a positive reaction. And slowly, without realizing it, you move away from your own center. A person who is disconnected from themselves cannot create a deep connection with someone else because connection requires honesty and honesty requires courage. Many people approach conversations with women carrying an invisible weight, the weight of expectation. They think, I need her to like me. I need this conversation to go perfectly. I need to impress her. But the moment you believe you need a specific outcome, you create pressure. And pressure destroys natural communication. Think about holding a flower. If you hold it gently, it stays beautiful. But if you squeeze it too tightly because you are afraid of losing it, you damage what you are trying to protect. Human connection is the same. The more desperately you try to control the outcome, the more unnatural your energy becomes. Real confidence is not controlling how someone responds to you. Real confidence is being peaceful regardless of how someone responds to you. This is a powerful shift because when you stop seeking validation, you become free to actually see the other person. You stop thinking, how am I being judged be? And you start thinking, who is this person in front of me? You become curious instead of anxious. You become present instead of distracted. You become interested instead of desperate to be interesting. And this creates a completely different experience. A person who is seeking validation listens only to reply. A person who has inner confidence listens to understand. There is a difference. When you listen only to reply, your mind is preparing your next sentence. You are waiting for your moment. You are searching for something impressive to say. But when you listen to understand, you become aware of emotions, expressions, and meaning. You notice what is being said. You notice what is not being said. You notice the feeling behind the words. This is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is one of the strongest forms of communication because people do not only want to be entertained, they want to feel understood. Many people try to win someone's attention by showing how much they know. They talk about achievements. They talk about experiences. They try to prove their value. But sometimes the person who creates the deepest connection is not the person who talks the most. It is the person who makes others feel heard. Because attention is common, understanding is rare. A calm and self-respecting person does not enter a conversation thinking, how can I make myself look valuable? They enter thinking, how can I bring value to this moment? At this small change transforms everything. Because when your focus moves from yourself to the experience you are creating, your energy becomes lighter. You stop carrying the burden of needing to be perfect. You allow yourself to simply be human, and that is where genuine confidence appears. Many people misunderstand confidence. They think confidence means having no nervousness. They think confident people never doubt themselves. But this is not true. Confidence does not mean you never feel uncomfortable. Confidence means discomfort does not control your actions. A confident person can feel nervous and still remain calm. They can feel uncertainty and still communicate with respect. They can face rejection and still maintain dignity because their identity is not dependent on someone else's reaction. This is the foundation of self-respect. Self-respect means I value myself even when others do not choose me. I remain kind without begging for kindness in return. I remain honest without changing myself for approval. When you develop this mindset, your conversations become more natural. You stop chasing. You stop performing. You stop trying to convince someone that you are worthy because you already know you are. And this creates a different type of presence. A person who respects themselves creates boundaries naturally. They do not need to announce their standards. Their actions reveal them. They know when to speak. They know when to stay silent. They know when to move closer, and they know when to step back. This balance is powerful because communication is not only about approaching. Sometimes communication is also about knowing when not to force. A river does not fight every stone in its path. It flows around obstacles. It continues its journey. Your energy should be the same. If someone does not respond with interest, respect, or openness, you do not need to become angry. You do not need to prove your worth. You simply observe, you understand, and you continue forward with peace. This is not weakness. This is mastery. The person who needs everyone to accept them becomes controlled by everyone. But the person who accepts themselves becomes free, and freedom changes the way you communicate. Your words become calmer. Your movements become more natural. Your presence becomes stronger because you are no longer asking, do I have enough value? You are expressing, I know who I am and I am comfortable sharing that with others. This does not mean becoming arrogant. Arrogance says I am better than everyone. Confidence says I do not need to compare myself to anyone. Arrogance tries to stand above others. Confidence stands peacefully among others. This difference is important. A person with true confidence does not make others feel small. They make others feel comfortable. They create space. They create respect. They create trust, and trust is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. When you speak to a woman, remember this. She is not a challenge to conquer. She is not a prize to win. She's another human being with her own experiences, emotions, fears, dreams, and hopes. When you approach someone with this understanding, your communication becomes more respectful. You are no longer trying to take something from the interaction. You are creating something together. A moment, a conversation, a connection. This is where maturity begins because immature communication asks, what can I get from this person? Mature communication asks, what kind of energy am I bringing into this person's life? That question changes your entire approach. The strongest people are not those who can attract attention from everyone. The strongest people are those who remain centered whether attention comes or not. They are not empty without approval. They are already full within themselves. And when someone who is already complete meets another complete person, something beautiful happens. There is no chasing, no pretending, no pressure, only two people sharing their presence. This is the kind of communication that creates respect. Because respect is not created by saying the perfect words. Respect is created when your words, actions, and inner state are aligned. When you know yourself, when you value yourself, when you remain peaceful, then people feel something different about you. They feel stability. They feel confidence. They feel authenticity. And authenticity is one of the rarest qualities in the modern world. Many people are searching for techniques. They want to know what sentence to say, what message to send, what method will guarantee attention. But the deeper truth is this. The strongest communication technique is becoming a person whose presence already carries meaning. Because before people remember your words, they remember how they felt around you. And that feeling comes from your inner state, from your self-respect, from your ability to stand calmly in your own identity. Another level of communication that most people ignore because even with confidence and self-respect, many people still make one mistake. They try to fill every moment with words. They believe more talking creates more connection. But sometimes the greatest conversations are created not by speaking more, but by understanding the power of listening. And this is where the hidden art of true communication begins. The foundation of meaningful communication is not learning how to impress someone. It is learning how to master yourself. When your inner state is peaceful, your words become natural. When you stop seeking validation, your presence becomes powerful. You no longer approach conversations from fear. You approach them from confidence, respect, and awareness. Remember, the person who is comfortable with themselves never needs to force connection. Their calmness speaks. Their actions speak. Their presence speaks. Continue training your mind, strengthening your character, and developing the wisdom to communicate with patience and understanding. If this message brought value to your life, subscribe to this channel for more wisdom, personal growth, and teachings on building a stronger mind and a stronger life. Keep training, keep growing, and remember, a peaceful mind creates powerful communication. 3. The power of listening without interrogating. Connection beyond questions. Many people believe that the secret to talking with a woman is knowing what questions to ask. They search for techniques. They memorize conversation starters. They look for the perfect words that will create attraction. But there is a deeper truth that many people miss. A person does not feel connected because you ask many questions. A person feels connected because they feel understood. There is a great difference between questioning someone and understanding someone. A question can come from curiosity, but a question can also come from insecurity. And the energy behind the question changes everything. When someone asks questions because they truly want to understand, the conversation feels natural. But when someone asks questions because they are afraid of silence, afraid of losing attention, or afraid of being rejected, the conversation starts feeling like an interview. And no one wants to feel like they are being interviewed. Imagine sitting across from someone and every few seconds another question arrives. What do you do? Where are you from? What do you like? What are your dreams? Why did you choose that? The questions themselves are not wrong. But without presence, even good questions can feel empty. Because connection is not built by collecting information. Connection is built by creating an experience. A wise person understands that communication is not a competition where the person who speaks the most wins. Sometimes the person who listens deeply creates the strongest impression, because listening is not a passive action. True listening is an act of respect. When you truly listen, you are saying, for this moment I am not focused only on myself. I am here with you. This is rare in a world where everyone wants to be heard. Very few people practice the art of hearing. Many people are physically present but mentally somewhere else. They are preparing their next response. They are comparing their own experiences. They are waiting for a chance to bring the conversation back to themselves. But deep listening requires stillness. It requires patience. It requires the ability to allow another person to express themselves without immediately trying to control the direction. This is a form of inner strength because an unstable mind always wants to react. A peaceful mind knows how to receive. When someone shares something with you, do not immediately think, what should I say next? Instead, become aware. What is this person trying to express? Sometimes people are not looking for solutions. Sometimes they are not looking for advice. Sometimes they simply want to feel understood. A person who learns this becomes a powerful communicator because they understand the emotional layer behind words. For example, someone may say, I had a difficult week. A person who only hears words may respond, why? What happened? What did you do? How can you fix it? But a person with emotional awareness may first recognize the feeling. They may respond with calmness. It sounds like you have been carrying a lot. Those simple words can create more connection than 10 questions. Why? Because they acknowledge the human being behind the story. People remember those moments. They remember the person who made them feel seen. Not because that person had perfect words, but because that person brought presence. This is the hidden power of communication. The strongest conversations are not created by trying to appear interesting. They are created by making the other person feel valued. This does not mean you become silent and never speak. Listening does not mean disappearing. It means balance. You share, you receive, you create space. A conversation is like two people walking together. If one person always walks ahead, the other person cannot enjoy the journey. If one person always follows behind, the connection becomes unbalanced. Both must move together. This is why communication requires awareness. You must notice the rhythm. Sometimes you speak, sometimes you pause, sometimes you ask, sometimes you simply allow the moment to exist. Many people fear silence. They think silence means something is wrong. But silence between two comfortable people can be powerful. Silence allows emotions to settle. Silence allows people to feel relaxed. Silence shows that you're not desperate to constantly prove yourself. A person who is comfortable with silence communicates confidence. They are saying, I do not need to perform every second. I am comfortable being present. But this creates a completely different energy because desperation is loud. Confidence is calm. Think about nature. The strongest things in nature do not rush. The mountain does not hurry to become taller. The ocean does not panic because the waves come and go. Everything powerful has rhythm. Human connection is the same. Do not rush the process. Do not force every moment. Allow conversations to develop naturally. When you stop trying to control every second, you become more aware of the person in front of you. And awareness is where connection begins. But there is another important lesson. Listening does not mean agreeing with everything. Some people confuse kindness with having no boundaries. They think being a good communicator means always accepting. This is not true. A wise person listens with respect but maintains their own center. They can understand another person's perspective without losing their own. They can say, I understand why you feel that way, without needing to say I must feel the same way. This is emotional maturity because true connection is not created by two people becoming identical. It is created by two people respecting differences. When you listen deeply, you also learn something else. You begin to understand yourself because every interaction becomes a mirror. You notice your impatience, your need for approval, your desire to control, your fear of being misunderstood. Communication becomes a form of self-training. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to practice awareness, to practice patience, to practice compassion. And this is the true purpose of communication. Not simply exchanging words, but developing yourself through human connection. Because every person you meet teaches you something. Some teach you patience, some teach you acceptance, some teach you boundaries, some teach you understanding. A wise person does not waste interactions. They learn from them. They grow through them. And once you understand the power of listening, another question appears. If listening creates connection, then how should your own words be used? Because words are not just sounds. Words carry energy. Words can heal. Words can inspire. Words can create trust. But words without purpose can also create distance. And this is where the true art of meaningful communication begins. 4. Speak with purpose, not pressure. The art of meaningful communication. Many people think powerful communication means speaking confidently. But confidence without awareness can become noise. The goal is not to speak more. The goal is to speak with meaning. A person with wisdom understands that every word carries energy. Words can create peace. Words can create confusion. Words can create connection. Words can create separation. This is why before speaking a person must learn to ask, is this necessary or is this helpful? Is this coming from wisdom or from emotion? A calm person does not allow every thought to become a sentence. They understand that having a thought does not mean you must express it immediately. The mind produces thousands of thoughts every day. But maturity is choosing which thoughts deserve your voice. This is a powerful form of discipline. Many conflicts happen because people speak from their first emotion. They react instead of responding. They speak because they want to release tension, not because they want to create understanding. But once words leave your mouth, you cannot fully take them back. A wise communicator respects the power of speech. They understand my words are creating something. What am I creating? Are you creating trust? Are you creating respect? Are you creating understanding? Or are you simply trying to win? Because many conversations are not actually conversations. They are hidden battles. Two people are not trying to understand each other. They are trying to prove who is right. And when the goal becomes winning, connection disappears. A mature person does not need to win every conversation. They value peace more than ego. This does not mean becoming weak. It means becoming strong enough that your ego does not control you. A person with inner strength can communicate calmly even when emotions are high. They do not need to raise their voice to increase their value. They do not need to dominate the conversation to feel important. Their calmness becomes their strength. When speaking with women, this principle becomes especially important. Many men try to impress through constant talking. They share too much too quickly. They try to prove their intelligence. They try to show their achievements. But meaningful communication is not a presentation. It is an exchange. The purpose is not to show someone your entire life story in one conversation. The purpose is to allow trust to grow naturally. A seed does not become a tree overnight. It needs time, water, sunlight, patience. Connection works the same way. Do not rush emotional closeness. Do not force someone to understand everything about you immediately. Allow your character to reveal itself through consistent actions. Because the deepest communication is not only what you say, it is what you repeatedly show. Your patience, your respect, your emotional control, your consistency. These speak louder than any sentence. And when your words match your actions, people trust you. Because trust is created when people experience alignment. When your behavior and your words are connected, this is true power. Not pretending, not performing, not manipulating, simply becoming someone whose presence feels reliable. And that is where meaningful communication reaches a higher level. Because the greatest speakers are not always the loudest. They are the ones who understand. They are the ones who choose words carefully. They are the ones who bring peace into a conversation. And when you learn this, you discover something important. The way you speak to others is a reflection of the way you have trained yourself. A chaotic mind creates chaotic communication. A peaceful mind creates peaceful communication. The outside always reflects the inside. So continue training your mind. Continue observing your emotions. Continue developing patience, because communication is not only about connecting with others, it is about becoming a better version of yourself. And when you become that person, you no longer need to chase connection. You naturally create the conditions where connection can grow, because the deepest conversations are not created by perfect words. They are created by a person who has mastered their own energy. 5. Emotional intelligence, understanding feelings beyond words. Many people believe communication is about speaking clearly. They believe if they choose the right words, they will create the right connection. But human beings are not only logical beings. We are emotional beings. Behind every sentence, there is a feeling. Behind every reaction, there is an experience. Behind every silence, there is often a message. And the person who learns to understand emotions learns a deeper language than words. This is called emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize what is happening inside yourself and understand what may be happening inside another person. It is the ability to see beyond the surface, because many people listen only to what is being said. But wise people also pay attention to how something is being said. The tone, the expression, the energy, the feeling. A person may say, "I'm fine," but their voice may carry sadness. Their eyes may carry exhaustion. Their silence may carry something they cannot express. A person with emotional awareness does not immediately judge. They become curious. They observe. They understand. This does not mean you should try to read someone's mind. It means you develop the awareness to recognize that every person carries an invisible world within them. Everyone has fears they do not show. Everyone has battles they do not explain. Everyone has experiences that shape the way they see life. When you understand this, you communicate differently. You stop seeing people only as their current behavior. You begin to understand the emotions behind their behavior. A person who reacts with anger may not always be an angry person. Sometimes they are carrying pain. A person who becomes distant may not always be rejecting you. Sometimes they are protecting themselves. A person who struggles to express themselves may not lack feelings. Sometimes they simply never learned how to communicate them. This understanding creates compassion, and compassion creates stronger connections. But emotional intelligence begins with yourself. Before you can understand another person's emotions, you must first understand your own. Many people are controlled by emotions they do not understand. They feel anger, but they do not know where it comes from. They feel jealousy, but they do not question it. They feel insecurity, but they hide it behind pride. This is why self-awareness is so important. When you feel something strongly, pause, observe. Ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to show me? What fear is behind this reaction? What belief is creating this feeling? This simple practice creates inner strength, because you stop becoming a prisoner of every emotion. You create space between feeling and action. And inside that space, wisdom appears. A person who lacks emotional control reacts immediately. Someone says something unpleasant and they attack. Someone disagrees with them and they become defensive. Someone does not respond the way they expected and they lose their peace. But a person with emotional intelligence understands. I can feel something without allowing it to control me. This is true power, not having no emotions, but having mastery over them. A river is powerful because it moves with direction. Water without direction becomes a flood. Emotion without awareness becomes destruction. But emotion guided by wisdom becomes strength. When speaking with women, emotional intelligence becomes especially important because connection is not only created through information, it is created through emotional safety. A woman, like any human being, wants to feel respected. She wants to feel heard. She wants to feel that the person in front of her is present. Not pretending, not performing, not trying to manipulate, just present. This is why emotional intelligence is more powerful than any communication technique. Because techniques can be copied, but awareness cannot be faked for long. Someone can memorize hundreds of conversation strategies. They can learn perfect phrases. They can imitate confidence. But if their inner state is unstable, eventually it will reveal itself. The way you handle disagreement reveals you. The way you handle disappointment reveals you. The way you treat someone when you have nothing to gain reveals you. Character always appears through behavior. This is why developing yourself is more important than collecting techniques. Become a person who naturally communicates well. Do not only learn what to say, learn who you need to become, because communication is an expression of character. A calm person communicates calmly. A respectful person communicates respectfully. A patient person communicates patiently. The outside reflects the inside. This is a principle that applies everywhere. Your relationships are not only built through your words, they are built through the emotional environment you create. When someone feels peaceful around you, they remember that. When someone feels pressured around you, they remember that too. People may forget your exact sentences, but they rarely forget how they felt in your presence. This is why emotional intelligence is so valuable. It allows you to create a positive emotional atmosphere. You become someone who brings stability instead of confusion, peace instead of pressure, understanding instead of judgment. But emotional intelligence does not mean always being agreeable. It does not mean ignoring your own needs. It does not mean accepting disrespect. A wise person can understand someone's and still maintain boundaries. They can have compassion and still have standards. They can listen and still protect their own peace. This balance is important because true emotional intelligence includes respecting yourself. If you understand everyone else's emotions but ignore your own, you create imbalance. You must learn both. How to understand others and how to honor yourself. This is the path of maturity. The more you develop emotional awareness, the more you realize that communication is not about controlling another person. It is about controlling yourself. You cannot control how someone thinks. You cannot control how someone feels. You cannot control how someone responds. But you can control your own presence, your own reactions, your own attitude. And that is where your true power exists. Because the strongest person in any conversation is not the person who controls others. It is the person who remains centered within themselves. And when you develop this emotional strength, another transformation begins. Your words become calmer. Your actions become clearer. Your presence becomes stronger. People begin to notice something different about you. Not because you are trying to appear powerful, but because you have developed inner stability. And this leads to the final level of communication. Because even emotional intelligence is not the highest form of connection. The highest form is when your entire presence communicates before you even speak. Because the deepest message a person receives is not your words. It is the energy behind them. 6. Become a man whose energy speaks before his words do. Before you say a single word, people already receive a message from you. Your posture speaks, your eyes speak, your calmness speaks, your nervousness speaks, your confidence speaks, your insecurity speaks. Communication begins before language. This is why presence is so powerful. A person with strong presence does not need to constantly prove themselves. They enter a room and their energy feels stable. Not because they demand attention, but because they are comfortable within themselves. This is the final level of communication. Becoming someone whose character speaks before their words. Many people focus only on external improvement. They learn better phrases, they change their appearance, they practice techniques, but they forget the foundation. A simple sentence from a peaceful person can create trust. A beautiful sentence from an unstable person can create doubt. The energy behind your words gives them power. This is why inner training is essential. You must train your mind. You must train your emotions. You must train your awareness. Just like a martial artist does not become skilled by learning only movements, a person does not become powerful by learning only words. The real training happens within. Every day you have opportunities to practice. When someone challenges you, when someone misunderstands you, when something does not go your way, these moments reveal your level of training. Can you remain calm? Can you respond instead of reacting? Can you maintain respect while protecting your dignity? This is where true strength appears. Anyone can be peaceful when everything is easy. But the trained mind remains peaceful during difficulty. That is mastery. When you speak to a woman, do not focus only on creating an impression. Focus on creating a genuine interaction. Do not ask, how can I make her see my value? Ask, how can I show up as a person of value? The difference is profound. One comes from seeking, the other comes from being. When you become a person of value, you no longer chase recognition. You naturally create respect, because people are drawn to authenticity. They are drawn to emotional stability. They are drawn to someone who knows who they are. This does not mean becoming perfect. Nobody is perfect. It means becoming conscious, aware of your thoughts, aware of your actions, aware of your impact. A powerful person is not someone who never makes mistakes. A powerful person is someone who learns from mistakes. They reflect, they improve, they continue growing. This is the path of lifelong training. The same way the body becomes stronger through consistent practice, the mind becomes stronger through daily awareness. Small improvements create transformation. A little more patience, a little more understanding, a little more discipline, a little more self-respect. Over time, you become someone different, someone who communicates differently, someone who carries themselves differently, someone whose presence creates trust. And this is what people truly remember. Not the perfect line, not the perfect conversation, but the feeling of being around someone who is grounded, someone who is sincere, someone who is not trying to take energy, but brings positive energy. This is the difference between chasing connection and creating connection. When you chase, you move from fear. When you create, you move from abundance. And abundance is attractive because a person who is complete within themselves does not need another person to complete them. They share their life. They do not beg someone to fill their emptiness. They walk beside someone. They do not depend on someone to give them identity. This is true freedom. And freedom creates the strongest communication because the person who is free does not need to manipulate, does not need to pretend, does not need to perform. They simply show up as themselves, and that is enough because when you master yourself, your presence becomes your greatest form of communication. At the beginning of this journey, the promise was simple to understand that talking to women is not about memorizing perfect words, asking endless questions, or trying to become someone you are not. The deeper truth is this: powerful communication comes from mastering yourself first. When your mind is calm, your confidence is genuine, and your presence is grounded, your words naturally create respect, connection, and trust. You do not need to chase attention. You do not need to force attraction. You do not need to perform a version of yourself that you think someone else will accept. The greatest transformation happens when you become comfortable with who you are. Because the person who knows themselves does not approach others with desperation. They approach with peace. They listen with awareness. They speak with purpose. They understand emotions. They respect boundaries. And they allow connection to develop naturally. This was the deeper lesson behind everything we explored. The goal was to help you become someone who naturally creates a meaningful impression, because the strongest communication does not begin with the mouth. It begins with the mind. It begins with the heart. It begins with the person you choose to become. Summary of today's talk. Communication is not only the exchange of words, it is the exchange of energy. Every conversation is an opportunity to practice awareness, an opportunity to practice patience, an opportunity to practice respect. When you train your inner world, your outer world begins to change. When you become calm within yourself, you stop searching for approval outside yourself. When you respect yourself, you communicate from strength instead of fear. When you understand others, you create deeper connections. Remember, a person with a restless mind creates restless conversations. A person with a peaceful mind creates peaceful connections. So, continue training your mind. Continue developing your character. Continue becoming someone whose presence brings value wherever you go. Because the greatest improvement you can make in communication is not learning more words. It is becoming a wiser person behind those words. If this message gave you a new perspective and helped you understand the deeper meaning of confidence, connection, and communication, consider subscribing to this channel for more wisdom, self-development, and teachings about building a stronger mind and a stronger life. Keep training, keep growing.